Australia. Welcome to Australia. The official name of Australia is the Commonwealth of Australia, but Australians call their land Oz. It is a place so unique it might have come from a fantasy story rather than real life. Australia is the world's largest island. Australia is the only country that is also a continent. In fact, it is the smallest and flattest continent. Australia has beautiful beaches and amazing wildlife. It is also a country with a fascinating and troubling history. The first European colony on Australia was a group of prisoners sent from Great Britain. The impact of colonization has been far-reaching for the first humans who lived in Australia. The island's indigenous peoples, located in the southern hemisphere, or half of Earth, Australia is south of the equator, so it has the opposite seasons of places north of the equator. When it is winter in Europe, North America, and in some of the areas of South America, it is summer in Australia. It is summer in Australia. June through August is winter in Australia. Read on to learn more about the country, the continent, and the island called the land down under. The land. Australia is the sixth largest country in the world. It is as large as the United States, not counting Hawaii and Alaska. The continent covers 7,692,024 square kilometers of land. The Indian Ocean borders Australia on the west and south, while the Pacific Ocean surrounds the northern and eastern edges. Australia has three main areas: the Western Plateau and the Central Lowlands, and the Eastern Highlands. The Western Plateau, covering 2/3 of Australia. It is a flat, dry desert area with hot weather. Scientists have found the world's oldest rocks in the Western Plateau. Dry grasslands are found in the Central Lowlands, where it is hot all year during the day, but can be very cold at night. The Great Dividing Range, part of the Eastern Highlands, is home to rivers, valleys, and Australia's highest mountains. Australia has diverse habitats, including desert, freshwater, coastal sea, grasslands, wetlands, rainforests, and heathlands. Heathland areas are usually coastal, with low plants covering the ground due to spray saltwater and poor soil. Northern Australia has a tropical climate, while the southeastern and the southwestern areas are mostly mild. The middle of the country is mainly desert. Most areas in Australia have very few people living in them. Today, around 90% of the Australians live in cities, mainly along the coast in Australia. Most cities are located long distances from one another. Canberra in Australia's capital city. Sydney is its largest city, with a population of more than 5 million. The underpopulated areas of Australia are mostly in the huge dry inland area known as Outback. The Outback has enormous deserts as well as some mountainous regions. The landscape seems to stretch on forever. Rain may not fall there for years at a time. Towns in the Outback typically amount to just a few buildings and are spread far apart. Some residents of the Outback live and work in enormous ranches called stations, which are actually larger than some small countries. Other people work in mining and oil production. The people. Thousands of years ago, Australia was home to many indigenous peoples. Some experts estimate that around 1 million indigenous peoples lived in Australia, although others estimate a lower number. After the British colonized the continent, it was changed forever. Today, Australia is a nation with more than 25 million inhabitants. In 2020, around 91% of Australians were white and 7% were Asian. Less than 3% or around 750,000 people were indigenous peoples. History. Two distinct groups are considered Aboriginal Australians. Aboriginal Australian peoples from the mainland of Australia and Torres Strait Islanders, who lived on a group of islands north of Australia. After 50,000 years living in Australia, the lives of Aboriginal people came to the stark halt in the 17th century. Europeans began to explore and colonize the land. The British saw Australia as a way to solve the problem of overcrowding in British prisoners. In 1788, a penal or convent colony, a settlement of British prisoners, arrived in Australia from England. The first settlement had around 759 prisoners, 568 men, and 191 women, 200 soldiers, and 40 wives and children of the soldiers. They lived in tents and ate native animals, as well as food sent from England. Before the British colonized the land, indigenous people belonging to more than 500 different groups with their own distinct languages and cultures lived in Australia. Between 1788 and 1798, an estimated 90% of Australia's indigenous population was killed, either during violent encounters with the British or from diseases brought by the colonizers. The indigenous peoples continuously resisted the stealing of their lands. They maintained their cultures, languages, and traditions. Although the population of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples had dropped at about 117,000. By 1901, the population has since risen to around the pre-colonization numbers. Wildlife. Australia's history are also affected in wildlife population. As cities have expanded, natural areas have grown smaller, making habitats and food scarce for some animals. Because the continent isolation and the harsh conditions, animals found nowhere else on Earth had made their home in Australia. Many of Australia's mammals are marsupials, such as kangaroos and wallabies. These animals give birth to tiny helpless babies that must live in a pouch or pocket on its mother's body while continuing to develop. Some marsupials disappeared long ago on other continents, but Australia's insulation allowed many types of marsupials to thrive. Scientists aren't exactly sure why. One idea has to do with marsupials having little competition for food, with shorter pregnancies might have also given them an advantage. The platypus in any animal is an animal unique to Australia. It has 4 legs, fur, beady eyes, a tail like a beaver, a duck's bill, and webbed feet. Adult males have venomous spurs on their back ankles. Along a platypus is a mammal. Females lay eggs. One of Australia's most extraordinary places is the Great Barrier Reef, which is located off the coast of northeastern Australia. The largest coral reef system in the world. It is home to more than 1,500 types of fish, 2,000 kinds of coral and other sea creatures, sea plants, and birds. Climate change, fishing, coastal construction, and runoff water from the land carry pollutants are all major threats to the reef. Many people are working to save the Great Barrier Reef. Things to do. The sun is usually shining in Australia. Visit to the beach and time spent out of the water, swimming, surfing, snorkeling, scuba diving, and boating are typical activities for many Australians. Shark Bay, Australia's largest bay, is on the western part of an island and home to an incredible array to wildlife. The Western Areas Gibberellary region has breathtaking gorges, rocky shores, waterfalls, rivers, and beaches. Bondi Beach in the southeast near Sydney is one of the world's most famous beaches with its beautiful white sand. A 3 or 4 day train journey across the entire continent takes visitors through Australia's different habitats to see breathtaking sights, such as rocky peaks and gorges of the Flinders Ranges in the outback. Trips to explore the outback never disappoint visitors, hike and discover wildlife, and swim in wild waterholes. Uluru, the world's largest monolith or single rock, is a sacred site to Anangu peoples. It is located about 200 miles west of Alice Springs, in a region called Century. Sydney is an important destination in Australia. Visitors enjoy the city's harbour and the Sydney Harbour Bridge and the largest steel arch bridge in the world. They also take in the beauty of one of the most famous modern buildings, the Sydney Opera House. Down Under, Australia's extremely insulated location has a lot to develop in many unique ways. The island is celebrated for its natural beauty as well as special titles as the world's biggest island and the only country to also be a continent. Much about the land down under, from its unique creatures and its incredible landscapes, is unlike any place else on Earth.